I would like to acknowledge that this video is being filmed on the traditional lands of the Wurrundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander or First Nations people who may be watching this video today. Hi everyone, it's Steph here. This is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to a Books Beside My Bed video. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read between the 7th and the 11th of February. I read a total of 6 things, which equated to about 1,027 pages, and my yearly reading total is 73 books. First of all, I want to give a really big shout out and thank you to my new channel members. So obviously last weekend I opened up channel memberships and I'm incredibly grateful to the following people who have signed up. As I've said in that video, you don't have to become a member to show your support for the channel, but I do really appreciate those people who have been able to do that as well. Thank you very much to Shae, to MJ 2004, Cotannah, and I apologize if I say that incorrectly. Feel free to correct me on pronunciation in the comments. Ilianna, Carrie from Fantastically Taboo Books, Bree from In Love and Words, Camilla, Tracy M, Tracey A, and Bianca from My Bookworm Sanctuary. Thank you very much to the new members. There are credits now at the end of my videos with everyone's name, and if any of these people have booktube channels, I will also leave them linked below so you can check them out as well. So jumping into the books this week, I read a stack of different things. I had to read Fall of the Argosi by Sebastian de Castell, which is part of the prequel series in the Spellslinger series that follows Farius Parfax, who is the Argosi mentor from the main series. This was a review copy that I received from Alan and Unwin back in January, and I just hadn't had a chance to read it, but I finally did this week and I really enjoyed it. One thing I will say about these books is that it probably takes me about 50 pages to really sink into the story, and sometimes that's why I love the books, but it takes me a while to, get started, because I know that I have to get through the first 50 pages and then I'm totally hooked. It's YA fantasy and I don't read YA or fantasy much anymore at all, and yet I keep coming back to this series. I do really love the cover designs on all of these books. I talk about them every time I have one because they are, these gorgeous playing card designs that have, different images on the top and the bottom, and it really plays into the theme of the book about the Argosi, who are these nomadic travelers who view the world and help out in their own way, but they record events and things on Argosi decks. And I'm not going to try and explain it because my brain doesn't work that way with fantasy, but I understand it when I read it. Farius Parfax was the mentor in the original series, and this takes place when she is 17. She has just left her Argosi mentors herself, and she believes that she has done them incredibly wrong, and she's haunted by this, but she's traveling and she is attacked by 2 people who appear to be infected by some kind of insidious disease, and she ends up defending herself and having to kill them in order to survive. And then she discovers that there is a young boy and that one of the men that she killed was his father. Binta, the young boy, doesn't speak. He communicates in a very unique kind of sign language that she hasn't encountered before, so Farius spends a lot of time learning how to communicate with Binta, which was fantastic. And then they also come across a second Argosi, and her name is the Path of Thorns and Roses, I believe, but Binta and Farius call her Rosie, just to annoy her. Rosie has a secret, and as the 3 of them are trying to track down the source of this virus, that secret threatens to undo all the work that they're doing. I really enjoyed it. It was fun. I love that in the book we get these illustrations that talk about the different aspects of Argosi culture and belief, and things that really shape the reason the way they are, and I really enjoyed myself. I also continued reading some books in Evie Mitchell's Capricorn Cove series. So I read Double Breasted, which was her first sapphic romance in the story, which follows Willardine and Teddy. Willardine has moved to the small town of Capricorn Cove after having breast cancer and a double mastectomy, and she has bought this chicken farm, and she ends up crossing paths with Teddy, who is a local police officer. Is she a police officer or does she work? I think she's a fire investigator. And they meet when one of the chickens on Willardine's new farm, pecks through some wires and sets fire to the barn. It's an interesting meet cute. Obviously Willardine is really self-conscious and trying to navigate this new relationship. It was just really short and sweet, and for the most part low angst, despite the fact that all of these characters have gone through some really big things in their lives, but they find that their relationship is something to hold on to and look forward to. Then I read As You Wish, which was book 8 in the Capricorn Cove series. This is more of a Halloween novella story. This one is about Yasmin and Caleb, and it is a brother's best friend trope. At a Halloween party, Yasmin and Caleb are sort of forced to confront their feelings for one another during a game of truth or dare, and it's really funny. I loved all of the party games that was played in this because it was just very nostalgic, and it was just really fun seeing all of these characters who in their mid to late 20s playing these games that they would have played in their teens and sort of reliving those memories. And I also read You Sleigh Me by Evie Mitchell, which is Capricorn Cove, book 9. This is a Christmas novella, and this one follows Farah and Wolf, and we actually see the start of their story in the previous book at the Halloween party, because apparently they have a moment that we don't see on page, but we know that something has happened. And this one is about Farah. She's a conservationist, and she's got a program where she's trying to save turtles, and she ends up needing funding really badly, and she runs into her friend Wolf, who is a kind of reluctant rock star, and is explaining all of this to him, and he decides to invest in her nonprofit. But what we also discover is that Wolf is really struggling to write new songs for his new upcoming album, and that he is quite sensitive to people's voices, and like ASMR. And whenever he is talking to Farah, he finds that he's able to think clearly and to write down all of these songs that come to him. And so before he even tells her that he's planning on donating money, he asks if she would be willing to record her voice speaking, just talking about anything, so that he can continue to write his songs, and that's where their romance really kicks off. So I really like that one. It was kind of sweet and very unique. I also picked up book 4 in the Necessary Evil series by Onley James. This one was Headcase, and it follows one of the twins from the twin brothers in the Mulvaney family. So Asa has never spent a lot of time separated from his twin brother Arby, because whenever they're separated, they just kind of lose it. But Thomas Mulvaney, who adopted them, has decided that it's really time that they learned how to operate independent of one another for longer periods of time, but we're talking days, not significantly longer than that. Asa and Avi are both psychopaths, and Asa is sent out to attend an event that his father can't attend and to accept an award on his behalf, which he doesn't do because he's contrary like that, and he's starting to get drunk at the bar when he's approached by Zane. Zane is a small town crime blogger who has bigger dreams, and he is investigating Thomas Mulvaney because he's noticed that there is a pattern of dead bodies that turns up around Thomas Mulvaney's properties in the city. Thomas Mulvaney is a billionaire who raised these psychopaths to turn them into vigilantes as part of an experiment. Obviously Zane doesn't realize that, but Asa is very intrigued by Zane, even though he knows that he is a reporter, and ends up taking him home. And this one has very dark, kinky sex in it because Asa is a sadist, and before this, Zane doesn't really realize that he's into that. And while Zane is flirting with Asa to get information about his adopted father, they end up back at his place. They have this moment, and then Asa is called out to help assist with a body disposal for someone else from the family, and Zane tracks him and sees everything, hears everything, and so Asa ends up kidnapping him and locking him to a radiator while he tries to figure out exactly what he's going to do with Zane. But the bigger overarching story in here, so this is all in the really first few chapters of the book, is that there has been a string of suicides on campus that don't appear to be linked, but is more than a cluster of suicides that you would expect. And when Zane hears about this, Asa notices that he has a reaction to it. And it turns out that Zane's brother had committed suicide on campus years earlier. And there was another string of suicides. And so they begin to investigate this together. And it turns out that it is linked to an online game, which is quite dark. So be aware of that going into it. There is massive content warnings for suicide and suicidal ideation in the book, as well as consensual non-consent and obviously the sadistic tendencies of Asa. But I actually really liked spending time with Asa. It was interesting because I don't think we've spent as much time with the twins in the previous books, and the next book is Arby's book, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And then finally I read Invisible Quarantined Alien by Robin Lovett. This is the 4th book in the Alien Quarantine Rescue series, which I've been reading and enjoying. This one was probably not my favourite in the series, not because it was badly written or because it wasn't fun. It was both of those things. It just was probably a little bit too much on the bonkers side for me, which is saying something. So this one is about Gretchen, who is the member of the female friendship group who we've been following in the series, who had gone off and left her friends and gone to live on her own in the wild. And we open the book and she's engaging in some very risky sex. In this world, there has been a pandemic, so be aware of that going into it. It's called the coronavirus, so it's, you know, very on the nose. The thing with this virus is that if you spend too much time in contact with, like physical contact with another human being, the virus can activate. So that's why people have been living separately. Anyway, so she's having sex and she knows, in her head, she knows that this is terrible and that she's probably going to get sick from it. She has some kind of, I don't know if it's a sex addiction. It's not necessarily mentioned in the book, but it's a compulsive need that she has for sex. And she, you know, she's denied herself for so many years. She's not in a good headspace. So she's in this situation, and then Ghost arrives. Now, Ghost is an invisible alien. All the members of his race have this affliction that affects them, and his means that he turned invisible. He ends up saving her from this guy that she's having sex with and realizing that she's infected. And of course, the only way to cure the infection is to get as much of his bodily fluids into her as possible. And if that's not your thing, do not read this book, because there is so much fluid. Like, it's so much. It's not really my thing, which is possibly why this is not my favorite book. But if you're fine with that, you'll probably enjoy it. The other thing in this book that probably needs to be mentioned is language, because Gretchen herself refers to herself as a slut, and she likes it when other people refer to her that way as well. So it's constantly used. That's not my thing, and it was jarring to me to see it so often on the page, but you know, it fit with the character and the story. Like, it wasn't out of place there. That's just a personal preference of mine. Yes, I'm still enjoying the series. I'm still liking seeing all the characters. I'm very intrigued by the next book that will be coming out, which follows the alien doctor from the series. And we found out a big secret about him at the end of the book. But yeah, so overall so far, this one was not my favorite. All right, so those are the books that I read this week. In the comments below, let me know if you have read any of these books or if you're planning on picking any of them up. Alternatively, feel free to share something that you have been reading. Otherwise, if you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave a chicken emoji down below. I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.